So then, if you awaken from this illusion,
persistence of vision.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Persistence of Vision podcast, inspiring conversations on land, sea, in the air, and even in outer space.
Woo! Hello, folks. I am Lance Fever Myers.
And I am LB Dio.
That's right, you are listening to the Persistence of Vision podcast. If you want to check out other podcasts that we have done, go to our website. That is POV-Publishing.com. There you can see all the links to our past podcasts. You can read comics by world-class artists. You can read essays, poetry, all kinds of cool stuff. Plus, there are links where you can click and go buy my book. Why so much? You can buy LB's book, The Goddamn Fool.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that, LB?
I say do it. I say do it. Why wait? Why wait? Don't think about how you could do it later. It's pointless. It's absurd. This is the time to do it. We're coming to you recording that is live from the North Door Lounge Bar in Austin, Texas, the beautiful city of the capital of the Texas state. And we are delighted to be here with this beautiful audience.
We actually have a live audience today. Woo! What else do we have? Who else?
We're equally delighted to have the lovely and talented Elizabeth Doss, the noted actress, actor, playwright, director, scholar, genius, and not only that, but she's here to discuss a book that she introduced to both of us that we had never heard of, but it's a Nobel Prize-winning novel, so shame on us. It's called, well, I'll let you introduce it, Elizabeth.
The book is called Independent People by Haldor Locksmith.
Well, the Haldor Locksmith, yes.
Yeah, and actually that's a more perfected English translation. I think it's called, if you were to translate it directly from Icelandic, it's more like Stand-Alone Folk or something like that. Which I really like that title.
Sounds much more grand, right? When I heard Independent People, I thought like Ordinary People, like a movie title. It does not evoke what the book actually is.
Yeah. Which is definitely standalone folk, for sure.
Standalone folk. Well, we're all standalone folk here at the North Door. What brought this book to your attention? Are you Icelandic?
I'm not Icelandic. I have a really wonderful friend, Paul Sullivan, who's, I think has his PhD in literature or something. And he's always turning me on to really good books. And he turned me on to this book. Towards the end of my pregnancy, I have a 1-year-old daughter who has a Welsh name. It's Bronwyn, so there's something Northern European.
Beautiful,
wonderful.
Yeah, she's named after actually a book, How Green Was My Valley. Have you guys?
I have heard of it.
Yeah, that one won. I think it won the National Book Award, not the.
Well, then we don't.
Not the Nobel Prize.
Shaw.
But he turned me on to a book at the end of my pregnancy, and there's actually something nice about reading a book that is so brutal and so difficult and so challenging when you yourself are preparing to do something you've never done before, but it's going to be really hard.
Yes, well, I don't want to give anything away, but the book does involve the violent death in childbirth of a young woman, so that probably was
really fascinating to be reading that 8 months pregnant. Yeah, it's actually, it was one of that moment in the book in particular is one of the things that drew me to it. Not only does a woman die in childbirth, this is the first wife of the protagonist, but she's laying frozen in her own blood, and the newborn child survives only because the dog in this old cabin has curled around it and kept it warm. So it was like it's actually a lot like birth, which I think is the most tender and most violent experience I've ever had.
Yes, well, certainly, and the dogs come off very well in this book, don't they?
Well, animals in general.
Yeah. Well, sheep. Yeah, we were extremely excited when you told us you wanted to read this book because, of course, it's about shepherds in the frozen wastes of Iceland taking care of their sheep. So we thought How have I not read this already?
Of course,
I've read
yeah.
almost every great
Let me
book
add
about
it.
shepherds.
But you mentioned that you said it's like a challenging book or a difficult book. I didn't find the reading of it wasn't challenging.
No, I think it's content. To me, it's like where Tolstoy meets Cormac McCarthy or something. It's so I think, and also the book is tender and violent, and then very close to its characters. I think there's like an intimacy where sometimes books that where you feel like it's somehow allegorical, maybe you don't get as close to those characters in a way, but I feel like you're right. You're like sitting on the brains and hearts of these, particularly the protagonist, Bajartur, I think is how you say his name, and his daughter, the one that was protected by the dog. Who was not his biological child, but then he grows up to raise. So I think the book, it could be, you could say it's about shepherds. It's also just about a father and a daughter kind of freezing and struggling and fighting and rebelling against one another.
Yes.
But the two books that it called to mind for me were, well, any Gabriel Garcia Marquez, definitely feeling, but also The Good Earth. Mm-hmm. I felt was very similar to The Good Earth.
Yeah. I have not read The Good Earth. I should. It's on my list of things to read. And also, it feels I mean, those feel right. It also feels I don't know. Like if you were to mix, it feels a little Melvillian to me.
Right.
Melville. Well, we knew you were going to mention Melville at some point.
I was waiting for you to mention Melville.
Sorry, I was going to get to it. Elizabeth Dawes, is it not true that you are a direct descendant of Herman Melville, the author of Moby Dick?
Yeah.
No way.
I'm a great, three greats granddaughter of Herman Melville, and my daughter Bronwyn is now the four greats.
Damn.
Four greats.
We are among greatness. We had our Moby Dick podcast live down here not too long ago.
Yeah,
that's right.
Sorry, I missed it.
Well, you haven't missed it. It's on the podcast.
It's on the
you can
internet.
hear it anytime you
right.
want.
Excellent.
Yes, and I think we mentioned you actually. Well, we might have.
It is, but it does.
Everyone will have to go back and listen to find out.
It is. I feel like it's apropos though. There's things about it that remind me of Moby Dick.
Yes.
Did anybody else have that experience, or did
I kind of liked it better than Moby Dick.
I like it better than Moby Dick too.
Yeah.
To be totally honest.
You hear that, folks?
Well, I think, and this goes back to a kind of great question of like, what becomes your favorite book? Because I think we can all agree there's great literature. I've read Moby Dick and Anna Karenina. I mean, there's these great books that we read.
Yes.
And some of them speak to us more than others. But then this book really took me over, you know.
So what was it that pushed it further than, say, Moby Dick?
Something like Moby Dick. Well, I think so. Well, I grew up in the country, and I didn't have I lived in a house with my family, my 5 brothers and sisters. I shared a room with 5 siblings at one point, and we were building our house as I was growing up. And so the protagonist, there was a lot of like the children having to help build and garden and haul firewood, etc. So I had a kind of bucolic upbringing that made this book felt very close to, even though it was, I mean, they have it way worse.
I was going to say,
Iceland. I mean, I was off of Fitzhugh Road between Oak Hill and Dripping Springs. I mean, yes. Hardly Iceland, but still, there was a kind of that rural familiarity, that way that to do hard things, you have to be really, really stubborn, and that's, I think, the kind of person I was raised with. The Bajartur, I don't know how you say his name, but he reminds me very much of my own dad.
Did witches ever live there?
Yeah, totally. I mean, and also this idea that the land is cursed.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. That's.
I love the beginning. It's all about the witches and the sorcerers and everything.
Well, it's like this
old
sort of
Icelandic
proto-time that sort of converges with a kind of contemporary time.
Right. It really draws you in. That's what sucks you in, and then the rest is shepherds and
shepherds. But I was really, really taken with the relationship between the father and the daughter, and the kind of general brutality their circumstances. So like, I think it's, I mean, we're not giving anything away to say so many people die.
Yes.
And the death becomes both, it's tragic every time, but it almost also becomes an absurdity.
Yes.
There's so much tragedy that they have to endure these characters. And I feel like there's a similar parallel to like our contemporary world now, because we have so much access to media and information, and we're kind of bombarded with these days. It's almost why I can't go on Facebook. There's too many tragedies to sort of perpetually endure. And so even though they're living, and also the book, it interestingly kind of sets up Iceland as though there's no other place on Earth.
Yes.
Right, but isn't there a part?
And then the World War happens,
right?
And then there's a World War.
Yes.
I mean, the greatest books are totally full of flaws and contradictions.
Sure, of course.
I mean, you know. But yeah, and actually what's interesting about that, did you want to?
Oh, no, I was just, no, go ahead.
Well, I think so there's like World War I happens as an exterior event, right? But then starts to impact the village because the price of mutton and wool goes up.
Yes.
So, right, so then this village, these people who have been totally poor forever start to experience a little reprieve from that poverty, but the wealth then kind of turns and destroys them also, because they start making all of these really bad choices with money, which I think we can see all kinds of parallels to that people who haven't had a lot of money and then suddenly get a lot of money. It's like winning the lottery. You don't know what to do with it, and you end up broker than you were before.
Yeah, I was just going to say the thing that I want the audience to realize is that even though these people are living in rural Iceland, this isn't a book about, like a guy who doesn't know anyone or is out in the middle of nowhere by himself. This is a community, and they have a relationship with the government. Yeah. They talk about politics. They talk about the laws. They have a, who's the guy?
The bailiff?
The bailiff, yes. Yeah. The bailiff is this, I guess, Dutch landholder who they're tenants of, or mostly tenants of.
Right. So, like, the whole premise of the book is that this one sheep farmer, shepherd, that the book primarily follows, is he's just bought his independent. He's bought a little croft of land, or put the first down payment on this, like, little meager plot of land and a tiny cabin. And the way that cabins are set up, it's depicted so interestingly. The animals live on the bottom floor, and then the people live in one room just above the animals. And so it's like the undergrowth, like these the animals are such an important character. I mean, we were sort of joking about it being sheep, but I mean, they live that close to being very, and then so these characters, the humans themselves, really, I think, exhibit a lot of animal like doggedness also.
And there's a lot of rich social interaction with the other people, and also the main character is not only a shepherd, but we could almost give the people the impression that he was illiterate or something, but in fact he's a poet. He's a student of poetry who, as he's tending his sheep, is all the time in his head composing poetry, reciting poetry, and he has extremely high, I would definitely say, snobbish standards for poetry.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't, I forget the term he uses, but it's a certain type of quatrain has to be present in a poem, or else, as far as he's concerned, it's just junk. Yeah.
It has to be so complicated you kind of can't understand it, or it's total nonsense. Yeah.
Well,
and he's fiercely independent. That's
right. Well, that's what I was going to bring up, is the significance of the title. So the translation is independent people. And it's the man is fiercely, I mean, like you said, it begins with him buying a plot of land, so he's no longer working the land for someone else. He is finally his own man and in charge of his own destiny, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and then the land he bought is cursed.
Right. But he doesn't. I mean, he kind of thumbs his nose at that. He doesn't care.
Yeah, but then all of these terrible things keep happening to him. So it's sort of like, that I feel like he doesn't believe it, but I think it's important for you, the reader, to know that the land is cursed.
You think?
I think so. And also the stories of what she did. I mean, like, this is in no way a feminist book, but it's interesting that the witch that cursed the land was so powerful
Brutal.
and so barbaric. And there's like these really great passages about like you can still see the remnants of the blood on the snow from like the men she maimed.
Well, yeah, well, she has her husband take all her children out and like kill them in various ways, throw them in the river, or like bury them under a pile of rocks or something.
And that was what she did in her life. And then she's like a ghost that continues to haunt the land.
It's brutal. She's wicked.
And she's more dangerous as a ghost than she was in her actual life.
Yeah, which is true of a lot of us.
Yeah. Yeah, and then bad thing, and then are you gonna be a really bad ghost? Do you think?
Oh, I'm going to be a terrible ghost. Yeah, people are going to say the same thing about me. That he was terrible in real life, but he's so much worse as a ghost.
I want to be so much more productive and much more creative. That's my goal.
But it occurs to me now as we're sitting here talking about it that the main character, whose name I can't remember.
Bajartur. Let's just say it's that. Let's just call it
Bajartur.
People on the internet can make fun of us.
But he's very American, in a way.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's what's. And then his youngest son decides to go to America.
Yeah, I think it may be a parody of America to some extent.
I think so.
But at the same time, it's
maleness certainly.
Yeah, but the great thing is that because it's such a powerful work of literature, it's never merely a parody. I mean, he's actually an extremely admirable and interesting person, even though he's somewhat ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's again the mark of a great book is that like a character is coming to you in so many different layered ways, right? That they're in one part a parody, and that they're another part something you deeply empathize with, and another part you see how flawed they are.
Yes.
Well, what do you think of? This may be a stretch, but hear me out.
That's a stretch.
Let me try this, okay? So this was published in the 30s.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's hard to know whether or not the Great Depression had really taken hold by the time this book was being written, or...
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that if it was published, I think I read somewhere that he was writing this book in LA of all places in 1928.
Oh, 28, okay.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know, because I think what I was going to try to suggest is that when you think of, the time period artistically speaking, it's sort of high modernism, right?
Yeah.
Which is like the height of like a society treasuring individuality rather than, following the establishment, right? Which I don't know. Here I am, like completely just making this up as I go. But I think, I think the book makes it so the character really, really treasures his individuality. Right. Individuality over, in an economic sense, in a familial sense, in every sense of the word, he wants to be his own man.
Right.
And I think that's almost what curses him.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a little bit of an indictment of the idea of capitalism, of
definitely
of the idea of high modernism being this place where individuality is the utmost.
Well, so yes, and I think it is. I know that Locksmith, just from a few people I've talked to about this book, was a serious Marxist, and I also know that he didn't win the Nobel Prize for Literature until the 50s, and this book was written and was published much earlier. So there was and then it wasn't translated into English until after that, and there was, I think, some sort of in the Red Scare McCarthy era. A movement to not publish this book in the United States. Yeah,
it's interesting because it's very far from being agitprop or Marxist propaganda. You really have to read between the lines to get a sense of the political aspects of it at all, I think.
I think it's so deep, and these are inferences that we can. I mean, partially what I think you experience in the book is how deeply they live in a totally. I mean, they are within a community, but this community is deeply isolated and lives the way it basically has lived for 8,000 years, right? Since like civilization, since agriculture was discovered.
Mm-hmm.
So these people are living kind of the way that they have always lived. And you see that like the introduction of wealth and basically gaining, profiting off of somebody else's labor is certainly not to their benefit.
Right.
It is complex though, in that, I mean, it's not a simple like indictment of any particular, one particular way of living or one particular attitude, towards how society should or shouldn't be run.
Yeah.
Right?
I totally agree. I think it's written from a much deeper place. It's like the layers of complexity. Just in turn, I think about, if you were to write, this is a book about how messed up it can be to be a sheep farmer in Ireland. This is a book about a father and a daughter who are not biologically related, but sort of entangled permanently as souls. And like, how do you parse that out in this one life? Like, I think it's a book about. I mean, we haven't really talked very much about that relationship yet, but I think he, like Bajartur, who is the most selfish, most interested in his own autonomy, decides to raise the essentially bastard child of his dead wife.
Right.
Cheating dead wife.
His cheating dead wife, right? And so, and that.
And it's his the bailiff's
son.
Right.
Right. So she cheated on him with like a sworn enemy's child. Like it's just every which way it's wrong. But he feels this like great tenderness towards his child and takes care of her, I think, better than he then later, we also haven't talked about the granny, who's really, really, really fantastic. This book sounds so dark, but it's very humorous.
Yes,
also. It's
that's
very
also
funny.
important to keep in mind, folks. The book is funny.
I mean, this is where I was saying, like, the tragedy sort of becomes its own absurdity after a while.
Absolutely. If you can't laugh at a woman dying in the frost with her baby,
well, his
barely alive
being
beside
saved
her.
by the dog's warmth.
Being saved by the warmth of a dog. I mean, again, violent and tender, and something in there is so. I don't know.
We know what Oscar Wilde said about one of Dickens' books. He said, "A person would have to have a heart of stone to read the death of Little Nell without laughing." Why don't we have a little excerpt?
An excerpt from the book?
Yeah, or just
Let's
anything
see.
you want to read.
Well, I thought this in this interjection, who was written by, what the heck is this guy's name? Brad Lighthouser?
Lighthouser, maybe?
Lighthouser? I don't know.
We don't care. We don't care
We
about
care.
you, Brad.
We
do.
We care, Brad, because I think this is Brad, wherever you are. I think this is a really beautiful introduction. But I think it might encourage somebody to read this book.
Yes, that
I'll
would be
read
good.
this little section here. Like 100 Years of Solitude, with which it shares family resemblance, Independent People in its opening pages evokes the dawn of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
He works with Jay, folks.
Yeah. All right. Should I start over?
Yes, that would
All
be
right.
good.
Okay. Like 100 Years of Solitude, with which it shares family resemblances, Independent People in its opening pages evokes the dawn of time. Garcia Marquez's novel commences on a blue morning when the boulders in a streambed look like dinosaur eggs. Independent People's first chapter summons up the days when the world was first settled, in 1874 AD, for that is the year when the Norsemen arrived in Iceland. And one of the book's...
874.
Oh, what
Sorry.
did I say?
1874.
Oh, I should have said 874 AD. For that is the year when the Norsemen arrived in Iceland. And one of the book's very wry conceits is that no other world but Iceland exists. The tale takes place among farmers, habitually so impoverished that they died without ever having transacted a business deal involving more than a few dollars at a time. These are men who might venture outside their valleys once or twice a year, hiking to a little fishing village to purchase a few provisions. For them, even Reykjavik is a misty dream. So I think that sort of speaks to the isolation.
Yes. And you know what I learned today playing basketball?
What did you learn?
I learned you always hit the cutter. No, I learned that a guy named Jeremy was there, and he said that Iceland has the most authors per capita in the world.
Oh, how fascinating. But then I also learned that this Haldor Lux, not playing basketball, but by reading the rest of this report, he's like the great towering figure in Icelandic literature.
Yes.
He's like
and amazingly prolific. There's tons of books by him on Amazon.com.
Totally.
Yes.
Actually, I don't know how many of his books have been translated into English.
It looked like a lot. I mean, I got the impression. It almost looked like they were a series, but I don't think they are.
Well, I know that he had books that were published in like, this was published in parts.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, we've been talking about how dark and depressing and how complex the messages are. But again, the language is not terribly complex. It's very inviting. It's easy to read. It reads like a fairy tale almost.
Yeah.
To me, like you're reading a Tolkien book or something. It's like.
Though I'm not I don't really go for.
You don't like.
Fantasy.
Then we'll go back to Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
It feels
there
a
you
little
go.
bit more
right.
realistic.
Right. It is real. I mean, despite the fact that it mentions the cursed lands and the sorcerers that were first there and that sort of thing, the lion's share of the book is about relationships and about. Surviving and things like that.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere they call it like lyrical naturalism or something like that, which is a thing. The other thing that sounds interesting to me, lyrical naturalism.
Sure.
God, that sounded so snooty. I think Tolkien's fine. It's just not really my thing.
I don't.
Nerd alert.
Tolkien.
Nerd alert.
Okay. And I don't know. But I do think,
folks, this book is about hobbits.
Something that a thing that I call my own writing. I have words for my own writing. I like to write in a vein that I call surregionalism. Which is just sort of, and I think a lot of writers that I love do this surregionalism thing. I'm thinking of like Federico Garcia Lorca or Gabriel Garcia Marquez, or places where like the time and place is so much a character that it makes the world surreal. Like it really makes
I love that. Yeah.
Place that you're entering feel so peculiar. And
could you tell us a little bit about your own writing?
Faulkner is totally, lives, I think, in that vein. My writing, well, the first play that I wrote, actually, I moved to Spain to start writing. This was like in 2008. It was when I voted for Barack Obama. Is it okay that I say that on your podcast?
What? You did what?
Yes.
I voted for Barack Obama by mail from Vélez Rubio, Spain.
Oh, isn't that nice?
I went to Correos and filled out my ballot. I sent off my ballot. It's so fun but I do feel like there was this great, among people that I know, radical leftists. All my friends are very radical leftists. There was like a great celebration in 2008, and I was kind of alone and missing it on another, like living in this really tiny village in Spain. But there, I felt like I just needed to go away and be alone and figure out what my brain was like. I started writing my first play called Murder Ballad, Murder Mystery, which then got a production in Austin in 2009. And it's a total work of surregionalism. It sort of bases, it sort of strings together a series of murder ballads. So characters from murder. Are y'all familiar with murder ballads?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
We have the Transgressors.
Transgressors, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Transgressors. So this sort of made those characters come to life, and I called it an existential whodunit. It was really fun, and then from there, I wrote another play after that called Hill Country Underbelly, which I think is a little bit akin to Independent People. It's about this like family, this pack of orphans living off of the land. Yes. Which were based on my siblings.
The wretched of the earth.
Pretty much. Pretty much. And then I started to work. I feel like I work on plays and series. So then I started a series, a play called Mast, that started to look at actually my grandfather, Herman Melville's great-grandson's life. And he was also my grandfather, who's Herman Melville's great-grandson. Was a newspaper editor in the Dominican Republic during the Trujillo regime in the 1940s, and my mother was born. Actually, she's from DR. She's from Santo Domingo, and she was held. The story is really sketchy, and everybody that is involved is dead except for my mother. But she apparently wasn't able to leave the country as an infant and was held there, and my grandmother left, so she was like living with my grandfather and a wet nurse in the Dominican Republic as an infant. And then
was she by any chance saved by a dog?
Would have been amazing. Could be. And then they went to Puerto Rico after that.
Prove that she wasn't.
So the play was based on that bit of family lore.
Wow.
And then I wrote. Do you want to hear more about my plays?
Well, I want to know why plays. Why did you choose plays over novels or short stories?
Oh, this is a good question. I am really hungering to figure out. Maybe you guys can give me some advice. I want to start writing fiction, I think. I've been an actor for about 20 years, so plays are sort of, that's the language that
makes sense.
I know in my bones, you know? Yeah. And then that's what I went to graduate school for. So I think you sometimes build you build your practice out of habit. Like, it's just all totally out of habit.
Well, I'll tell you, my
what's your advice?
Advice is just do it, and then that writing a novel is easier than writing a play, I believe.
I've heard people say that.
Because a play has to have an intricate and exacting structure that prevents it from becoming tedious, or it prevents it from seeming to not ever be coming to a conclusion.
Yeah, the systems in a play have to be tight and solid. It doesn't have to be necessarily an Aristotelian narrative.
Right.
But the systems can't miss a beat. They have to really know how to work together.
The structure can collapse. And then when you're in a play or in a movie where the structure has collapsed, you know it, because you're like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how much longer this is going to be, because I don't know where I am in the story. Yeah. Things like that. And a novel is much more forgiving. A novel, you can be discursive. You can think about ideas and just go off on flights of fancy and then return to the plot. And so, yeah, it's a piece of
Not
cake.
unlike Herman Melville.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say it's someone who's really taken with ideas.
And going off in tangents.
well, this is where I feel like that when I was thinking about what does this book have in common with like Moby Dick, and I think in the way that Moby Dick is a study of many things, and you learn how a ship works, and you learn like the anatomy, the biology of whales and marine life. This book, you learn everything there is to know about sheep. And so don't let that be lost on you.
If that doesn't grab you, then you have you're
you have no soul.
you have a heart of stone, like the one who doesn't laugh at the death of little Nell.
You don't appreciate the taste of grass.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time for the lightning round.
Lightning round.
Oh, goodness.
God,
are you ready, Elizabeth?
Oh no!
I don't even know what the lightning round is.
Oh, she doesn't even know what the lightning round is, Lance.
That's even better. That's even better.
I know it's better. I'm just enjoying the drama of the moment here. It's great.
Right.
This is great.
Relishing the fact that we're about to strike her down.
Okay,
these lightning
round questions. Have you ever been struck
questions.
by lightning in real life?
I've seen ball lightning.
You've seen ball lightning?
I've never been struck.
Okay, so you have some idea what
Ball
you're about to
lightning.
experience.
I'm a country kid.
I love it.
What can I say?
Okay, well, here you go.
It's like the most exciting thing that ever happens is ball lightning.
Have you really seen ball lightning?
In our front yard, yeah.
Wow, I thought that was the stuff of legend. I didn't
Yeah.
know that was
No.
real.
Well, if you live on cursed land,
Aha.
kind of thing that
Aha. Touche. Okay, are you ready?
yes.
I'm about to hit you with a battery of questions, the same questions we ask every guest that comes into our den here.
Okay.
Faster.
And it's going to go fast. Ready? Okay. Tell us about the first time you fell in love with a book.
First book I fell in love with was Franny and Zoe by
I
J.D.
love that
Salinger.
book.
Yeah. And
Bravo.
then the whole Raise High the Roof Beam Carpenter, specifically the Seymour Glass family
Sure.
has just
Sure.
destroyed me. But I love Salinger.
Good answer. Has a book ever changed your mind about anything?
Yes. I'm just trying to think about when that would be, what that would mean. I think I'm thinking about like East of Eden.
Oh, okay.
Or where it's like you're really or like characters of very low status that sort of turn around and reshape something.
Interesting. Steinbeck is the best.
Steinbeck is the best. Or Tortilla Flat, like the way that those, like taking a sort of like really sort of unsavory circumstances and then making people beautiful inside them.
Okay. Has a book ever changed your life?
Yeah, I do think Independent People changed my life, and it could have been right because, like I said, as I was about to give birth when I read this book, and that also changed my life. We could talk about that a little bit more too.
Fantastic. Has a book ever made you cry?
Oh yeah, pretty much the Ferrante books, the My Brilliant Friend series. Anybody else know those books? Do they make you cry?
I
Do they
see some
devastate
heads
you?
nodding in the
Yeah.
audience.
Oh,
I see some people
so
crying
good.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tears
Come
of
on. Toughen
joy
up.
and
Toughen up.
sadness.
Okay, name a book you've read more than once.
Love in the Time of Cholera.
Ooh.
Good one.
All of the Salinger books.
Okay.
Um,
Salinger did not write Love in a Time of Cholera. But go ahead.
No, but I was in addition to.
Just
There was a comma in there. You didn't hear my comma.
Just kidding. Okay, here comes the $1 million question.
Yeah, you ready?
This is the big one.
Hmm.
Do you have any poetry committed to memory?
Oh my God! I think I was telling you yes.
Yes?
The short answer is yes.
Can you
Way
grace
too
us with some?
That's the follow-up question.
much. Are you ready?
Yes.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's leaf hath all too short a date. Sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. From fair sometimes declined by chance, or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that thou owest, nor shall death brag whilst thou wanderest in his shade. But when in eternal lines to time thou growest, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
The darling buds of May.
You have won our lightning round.
That's an A plus.
I'm not sure what your prize is, but you've definitely won.
Yeah,
Oh,
you win.
thanks.
We need to have her every time. I think you won another appearance on our
Oh
podcast.
yeah, well, this is like
The
such
booby
a
prize.
joy to get to sit around and talk about books. Like,
Oh, thank you.
what a good idea.
We don't like to brag. But
Can I lightning round y'all?
Sure, of course you can. My God.
Favorite book, LB.
The Iliad.
Okay.
What?
Favorite
Really?
book.
Favorite book? Oh, geez.
What?
Lightning round.
Yes. What? That's the Iliad. That's my favorite.
Right
book.
now, I would have to say A Brief History of Seven Killings.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Kent is into that.
Kent's into it.
Yeah,
Kent in our live studio audience is into that.
that's my favorite
Poem
right now.
committed to memory? Like a haiku?
Yes, I have a longer than a haiku. I have many poems committed to memory, including Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you want to hear it.
Do it.
You can't mention it
I'll do
without...
it quickly. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where off the sacred river ran, through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground, with walls and towers were girdled round, and there were gardens bright with sinuous rills, enfolding many an incense-bearing tree. And there were forests, ancient as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. But oh, that deep romantic chasm that slanted down a green hill athwart a cedarn cavern, a savage place as holy and enchanted as air beneath the waning moon, was haunted by a woman wailing for her demon lover. And from this from this chasm with ceaseless turmoil seizing, as if the earth in fast thick pants were breathing, a mighty fountain momently was forced, amidst whose swift half-intermittent bursts, huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail or chaffy grain beneath a thresher's flail. 5 miles meandering with a mazy motion through hill and dale, the sacred river ran, then reached the caverns measureless to man and sank in tumult to a lifeless ocean. Amidst this tumult, Kubla heard from far ancestral voices prophesizing war. The shadow of the dome of pleasure floated midway on the waves. There was heard the mingled measure from the fountain and the caves. It was a miracle of rare device, a sunny pleasure dome with caves of ice. A vision in a damsel in a dulcimer, in a vision I once saw. It was an Abyssinian maid, and on her dulcimer she played, singing of Mount Abora. Could I revive within me her symphony and song? To such deep delight would win me that with music loud and long I would build that dome in air, that sunny dome, those caves of ice, and all who cried would see me there, and all would cry, beware, beware. His flashing eyes, his floating hair, weave a circle round him thrice, and close your eyes with holy dread, for he on honeydew hath fed, and drunk the milk of paradise.
Woo! Is that Eminem or Coleridge?
That's Coleridge. Yeah.
What a good nerd you are.
Thank you, thank you.
Good nerds all around. Lance, do you have any...
Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Here it comes. Ready?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Yes, actually, I do have a poem committed to memory.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to top you all.
Do it.
Here we go. Hats off to hats. They're better than dogs or cats. So get your hat, forget your pet, stick it on and you'll be set.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's Roscoe.
Roscoe Sweetwater.
Yes, the Sweetwater.
Now I'm thinking of Shel Silver. There's so many poems. We could just have a poem off.
Yes, we
Yes,
could have a poem
yes.
off. Unfortunately, we have an audience.
Let's save it for karaoke.
Poetry karaoke. Interesting.
Poetry.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have been a delightful audience, and of course, I think you'll all join me in thanking Elizabeth Doss. Did a superb job. Gets an A+ on the lightning round. Congratulations.
Yes, fantastic.
And I'm sure you'll all want to read Independent People now.
Right after you read The Goddamn Fool, which is available right there on that table, along with my book, Why So Much?
And if you're not in the studio audience today, you can buy those books on Amazon.com.
And if you're an Austinite, you can go to Malvern Books and buy your
cool.
copy tomorrow.
It's a
Yes.
good place to go.
Yes,
Yes,
it
it
really is. They are so supportive
Yeah.
of the local writers. So
Yes.
supportive.
And do go to POV-Publishing.com to learn all about everything that you'd ever wanted to know, or even things that you don't want to know and you have to confront, because sooner or later you have to grow up and face them.
Thanks, everyone.
Are we opening it up to questions?
Oh,
That is a fantastic
why not?
idea.
Why not?
Sure.
Any questions for our guest?
Now, Elizabeth, one of our favorite theater companies is called Paper Chairs.
Yep.
I wonder if you could tell us a little about it and maybe when the next production might be.
Paper
that's
Chairs. Tell us about Paper Chairs.
Well, Paper Chairs was sort of born of my first play, Murder Ballad, Murder Mystery, which was actually produced by The Vortex and another company called Tuto. And then basically everybody that worked on that production died mysteriously. Foodborne, airborne, bloodborne, something was born. Everyone was dead. No, we just... RMP. So we started a theater company together, and so Paper Chairs works. We mix it up. We do a little bit of kind of devised work. We do a little bit. I've worked on. I've made a few translations. I've done a few original plays. Most of my plays most of my translations turn into original plays. Just one recently, The Divine Narcissus by Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz,
Yes.
who was a nun. Yeah, a 17th century
One of the great
Spanish
intellects
nun.
of all time.
Yeah, the New World's first feminist. And so we created an adaptation of that. I've also, a vein I like to work in sometimes is like finishing. I finished an unfinished Lorca play called El Público, or we translated it to mean the audience. And so I took the play I disassembled the play and rewrote it to sort of tell the story of his murder in Granada. At the beginning of the Spanish Civil War. And then I made this crazy play called Poor Herman, which is based on, so most people think of Herman Melville as like a successful author, but he was a total failure in his time. And he wrote 2 books back to back, Moby Dick, and a book most people have never heard of, called Pierre or the Ambiguities. Has anybody here heard of Pierre or the Ambiguities?
He's heard of it, this gentleman.
Oh, you saw it. Well, you saw the play. There you go. So the play sort of tells the story of Herman suffering in his house, unable to finish his play, or unable to finish his novel. His sort of maybe love affair with Nathaniel Hawthorne, who lives close by, and the sort of tensions in his house with his wife and their family, and being totally poor. And then so basically the first act of the play asks, why did Herman Melville write this book, Pierre the Ambiguities? And then the second act is a reenactment of that book that's pretty insane. And then the third act is him being buried by his family, and it's told by 5 women. So all the women in the play play Herman Melville.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, that's what paper. Yeah.
Have there been any productions of that outside of Austin, or are there any plans for further?
We want to do that outside of Austin. We did a reading of it in the Berkshire area at Herman Melville's house, actually, and that was fantastic. And I'm really hoping Herman Melville's from New York, and I would love for New York City to do someone in New York City to do a production of it. I think it's really good. So hopefully somebody else will pick it up.
And my friends did too.
That's the damn spirit.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
But you have to be at every performance.
I would have to be at every performance. Well, I'd make it work.
Yeah, she could do it.
All right, thank you.
Any other
I think
questions?
We can take one more, if there's another question.
Another question?
Well, this has been fantastic.
Yes,
Thank
it
you
has
so
been
much.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was super fun.
See you next time.
Woo!
This is a perfect setting to talk about independent people.
Isn't it?